if you have aspirations of, I want to be a 7-figure business owner, I want to be, a multi 7-figure business owner, I really want to leverage my company, then you have to learn how to do it. And then you have to hire the right people to help you with that too.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Nurse Boss Shift. It's your girl, Crystal P, the Beauty NP. And as you see, my partner in crime is not here today. So it'll just be me doing a solo episode. But I am so excited to welcome today our guest, Miss Brandy Mabra of Savvy Clover. And I'll just give a little bit and then I'll let Brandy take it over so she can explain what exactly the amazing things they're doing over at Savvy Clover. But she helps private practice owners to, I guess, scale their practice and then just to refine things in their practice. So, as you know, Kiana and I are both med spa owners. So we're excited to have this episode to hear some insight from Brandy on, what even we can do to continue to build our practice. But welcome, Brandy. Welcome to the show, the Nurse Boss Shift. If you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and what led you here today in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited just to talk all the things of being the CEO of
Yes.
your spa and practice and all the things in just healthcare in general. But I have the honor of working with private practice owners to scale their practices for growth, sustainability, and profit. So we spend a lot of time on team hiring, engaging your team, empowering your team, operations, making sure that your operations and your workflows processes are efficient and effective. And then also empowering you to be the best leader you can be for yourself and for what you're building. So creating something out of nothing sounds way easier than what it is. So there's so many mindset shifts that need to happen. Getting really comfortable with the financial picture and the money piece of it, putting yourself out there in different ways when it comes to marketing, especially if you have additional providers or additional service providers that you have inside of your company, things can definitely become a little bit more complicated. So we talk about all those things with my clients. And so I'm really blessed to be able to do this work. I have 15 plus years of healthcare experience, business, clinical, and leadership too. So I've been on both sides of the coin and both sides of on the practice side, but also too on the payer side when it comes to the craziness of healthcare insurance, all that stuff. And so I'm happy to be able to bring all that expertise to the table.
Perfect. Love it, love it. And how did you find this, I guess, as your niche or decide to start? What was your journey with starting this as your own business? Did you you said you were in healthcare 15 years, was it? So
15,
was
yes.
this
And
like a
even
was this was this something you segued into or like I'm getting a lot of response or how was it to where you said, I could start a business? And I always like to hear the journey of when the light bulb kind of went off, like I can start a business in this. How was that journey for you?
Yeah, I love this question because I believe when entrepreneurship, it's not always just a very straightforward. There's so many clarity moments and pivots. And, once you start to engage, it's like, oh, well, this sounds better. This doesn't go the way that I thought it was going to go. And so that's exactly my journey. When I first got out of the practice side, I went into consulting, working with a really large payer. And so with that, I was working with hospital systems and practices and small practices, corporate practices, in the C suites of some of the hospital systems and all these things. And so the conversations that we were having it was really fun to do. But when I first started my business, it was actually on career and leadership because that's what I had essentially been able to do. So I've been in a number of different C suites, especially as a Black woman and making over 6 figures. And I look different and, compared to some of my colleagues. And so one of the things I would always get asked is how were you able to do that? What did you do? How were you able to get promoted? How have you been able to make the amount of money you've been able to make? What have you done during your career? So that's what I thought my niche was going to be. And then once I started to dive into that, it was not what I wanted. So it was really fun just to be a mentor and to help folks out. But when they started asking me about LinkedIn and resumes and all those things that come with getting a job like that, I lost interest. So I
Yeah.
was actually part of a business mastermind at the time, and just getting some support with just starting my business. And so during that time, I realized that there was a lot of questions about just the business and hiring and team engagement and operations. What does that mean? And so I recognized, like, oh, well, I know all that, and I actually had more experience than my actual business coach. And so I
Mhm.
quickly learned it was my business expertise that was more in alignment that I was just sitting on and just not even recognizing it. And so once I started to work with entrepreneurs in business, I started to talk about my healthcare experience and being on different podcasts talking about my healthcare experience. And so then I started to get private practice owners asking, like, hey, I have this practice, I need help. And so it was very much in alignment with how I could help. But it was really weird because I never thought to put two and two together that I've been able to build these really big practices or be part of that.
Right.
And just some of the challenges that can definitely come with that. I never thought that I could have a business like that until I actually stepped into it. And now here I am.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I think that's so great and in line with what we always talk about here because one, we tell nurses, just take the first step. You never
Hmm.
know where it's going to lead you. You start with your knowledge, what people are asking you. Most of the time, what comes easy to you when you start there, but that doesn't necessarily always mean that's where you're going to end up. So I think that's great that you were able to make that pivot, and then also just the fact of how you were sleeping on your business knowledge and us as nurses sleep on our healthcare knowledge and all the things we know and what we could do. And we're like, oh, people will pay for that. Yes, people will pay for that because to you it comes easily and you don't think that it's anything, but to someone who doesn't know, it's everything. It could be like your business is the segue between someone having a successful business or not. So you have to get out there and use that knowledge because someone out there, they are dependent on the knowledge that you have to step out to be able to give them that. So I think that's so amazing. I
Yeah,
wanted to ask you,
absolutely.
talking about mindset, what are some of the biggest mindset obstacles that you see that providers have to go through in order to cross to the other side to have a more successful business?
Yeah, I think too, even going back to that point is imposter syndrome. How oftentimes we don't think what we have matters, or because we've been able to achieve really
Right.
great things, then it's not good enough, or somebody it's going to be bad, or I can't help this person. And so that's probably the number one mindset shift is that you have to own what you bring to the table in all of its forms, right? And so people need you to definitely get over yourself and put yourself out there
Right.
in any kind of way, as imperfect as you are, because we're all imperfect, and as uncomfortable as it feels, in order to help more people, right? And so we have to definitely just take the step, take the leap, um, go through all the feelings of feeling uncomfortable and scared. And there's some really amazing things that are on the other side of that. But that's the number one thing that you have to do is really just stop hiding and show up with some type of message, and then you'll figure it out along the way for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you. Now, do you help all types of practitioners? So, physicians who own their own private practice, nurses, nurse practitioners, you kind of help um, everyone who has a private practice?
Yeah, a lot of alignment and connection with it. Yes, for me, I've worked in a number of different specialties. I've worked in cardiology, asthma and allergy, ophthalmology, primary care, all kinds. And so at this point in time, the folks who probably reach out to me the most are mental health professionals, nurse practitioners, chiropractors, who else? Dietitians. Yeah, it's really interesting what happens. And so essentially the core of the folks who I help want to help people, right? And then there's always the healthcare aspect. And because from a business perspective, healthcare can be tricky depending on what your payment model is, depending on your staffing model, depending on, what you want to do in the space. And so with that, it's definitely that's where things can start to become more complex. But at the core of any healthcare business, it comes down to what are you selling? How much are you selling it for? How are you getting paid? Who do you need to hire? Who's the right fit? What's the business culture that you're going to have? What's the mission? What's the vision? And so at the core of the business, it's all the same. So it's just the specialty is different. It's that's where things start to become a little bit more complex.
Absolutely. And keeping with that same line of questioning with healthcare providers, do you find that there's like a particular hurdle they have to get over, because we aren't like business savvy, I guess you will? We're more on the clinical aspect, but just trying to getting like so they know that they're good, right? They know that they're a good practitioner, but just kind of that business hurdle. What's the main thing that you see that practitioners have to get over, to being a
They
successful practice?
Yeah, they have to learn business. That is ultimately the number one thing that's going to get in your way. Like if you've never managed a business, run a business, and you've never even been you could have even been in a leadership position, but looking at things from a high level or to understand business strategy or to understand some of the decisions that you're making and how that's going to impact you financially or making sure that you have the right partners that are part of the business, those are things that are very important, and those are the things that will keep you from going to that next level or at some point in time going to put you out of business. So I work with 7-figure practice owners. Some practice owners are now moving to multi 7, 8 figures, and they've been able to grow because they have their clinical skill set, right? And so they've been able to grow, they've been able to somewhat hire. They're just kind of moving
Mhm.
along, but at some point in time, they get stopped because they have either their team is quitting and they don't understand why. The things start to feel really
Mhm.
hard because they've grown their practice and their business, and now things feel more complex because operationally it's gotten more complex. They're not paying attention to the
Right.
money because they're busy, because they're still being in that practitioner role. And now the financials are starting to become an issue, right? And so at some point in time, that business piece is going to catch up. So you have to learn how to run, manage, and lead a business, right? And so if you are so focused on the clinical side, that's great. That's your expertise, but you still need to learn how to run a practice or your company or there's no way of getting out of it like at all. So if you especially if
Yeah.
you have a desire to bring in large amounts of revenue. So if you have aspirations of I want to be a 7-figure business owner, I want to be a multi 7-figure business owner, I really want to leverage my company, then you have to learn how to do it. And then you have to hire the right people to help you with that too. So a lot of the work that I do is just refining and making sure that our folks are hooked up with the right people. Um, so that way things become easier. And it's really fun to watch the transformation because they come in so overwhelmed and step by step we're putting in solutions, they're learning more, they're paying attention to things that they weren't paying attention to prior. They now have HR partners, they now have a great financial accountant, some of those things, and so their world starts to become really easy. Like one of our clients show up to the call today, hair all done, lipstick on, and she's like, I feel so good, I delegated to my admin and I haven't really leveraged her, and she's like, what do I do with my free time? What's next? So
Yeah.
it's really fun just to watch that transformation.
Yes, yes. That's the fun part of it when it gets to that part where you feel like you have help and you're utilizing your help how they're supposed
Mhm.
to be, utilized. I think it's hard for us to, we're used to delegating in the hospital, but then delegating
Yes.
outside, in the business world is something different. So it's
Mhm.
another learning curve that I feel as practitioners have to get over, as well. Okay, let's see. And then I wanted to ask you with your expertise, what are three marketing tips that you would give someone who is trying to expand their business, expand their practice?
Yeah, I would say marketing tips is that there's 3 phases to marketing, and you have to be in that cycle at all times. So in the beginning stages of business, it's just audience building, right? So you're trying to get clarity on who do you want to talk to, who is the right person to come into, to definitely come into the company. How are you going to serve them? What does that look like? And then making sure that you are marketing to the right folks at the right time. So it's all the attraction piece, right? And so some things that you can do is networking. You can definitely collaborate and partner with other folks who might be in similar industries or similar niches or in front of your person. You can do things on social media. So there's a number of different ways that you can definitely go with the marketing route. And then once those folks are part of your world, then the second phase is the nurture and engagement, right? So you have to build that relationship and you have to let them know, this is how I can help you. This is what we got going on. So even from a spa standpoint, so what services are happening? Are there any, special initiatives that you might have? Or why should they come in? What are some of the things that they might be going through? to get them to come in the door. And so you're talking to those pain points, you're talking to the benefits of working with you or coming in. And then that third piece is just the commitment, right? And so with that, you're now in a cycle where you are saying, like, I realize that you might have X, Y, and Z that you need to be addressed. This is how we can help you with that. This is the service that we have. This is, what will happen once you come in. And so when you're in that cycle, on a continuous basis, that's where revenue becomes more consistent. That's where your impact becomes more consistent. That's where, business starts to get really fun. But usually what happens is anytime financially things might get dry, it's because there's something that's off in one of those three cycles. So, or three
Mm.
phases. When it comes to that marketing cycle. So it's, but at the core of it's marketing 101 is tell people how you can help them and just, and as
Yeah.
many people as you can tell.
Yes. But getting those pain points and like really
Mhm.
hone in on that so people can come through the door is so important. Going back to us talking about business, I was going to ask you, what would you say is the easiest way or the cheat code, if you will, to someone who is not business savvy learning business?
The cheat
Yeah.
code? Oh, the cheat code is to hire a coach. Absolutely. I mean, that is the number
Exactly.
one cheat code. Because you
'Cause we
can.
see it sometimes, so I just love having guests on here, and then you guys say it, and it's like, "See, it's not just me because I have a coaching program, but
Mhm.
everyone in business knows that the cheat code is to get a coach." So I'm
Right,
great you said,
right.
but yes,
Yeah, yeah. And so,
what
like,
you always
yeah, it's the quickest way to move through things because especially if you're working with somebody who either has that expertise or has been there, they can speed you up, because they're not all trying to find the solution. They know the solution, right? And so that's the number one cheat code for sure. And then of course, if you can't go with that cheat code, then you can read and definitely YouTube and Google and do all the stuff, listen to podcasts like this. But if you
Yeah,
want to really move faster, then yes, to hire a coach or bring in a consultant to solve the problem for you.
absolutely. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Um, and then for a lot of, especially we teach IV hydration
Mhm.
and how to start, as Kiana calls it, a minimally viable med spa where, we're not huge. We don't have these huge budgets. We're oftentimes starting as solopreneurs, solo practitioners. So would you say the next way to get to the next level in your business would be to scale it? Or is there a way that solo practitioners can do really well who might not necessarily want to get into hiring a huge staff, things like that? I guess my question would be who would they have to hire to help them then if they want to just say solo practitioner to be able to have a thriving business as well?
Oh, always say that you need a good admin. Like, regardless if you are in that solopreneur space, but you are going to be getting phone calls and scheduling, which is what happens in med spas, right? And, you need to take money or you have things like administrative things, and you are in the space where you're the clinical person and you need to provide those clinical expertise. Then you need to have an admin person who can take all that off of you so you can focus on truly bringing in the money. And if the money is attached to you and what you're doing and not doing, then that admin person is important. So oftentimes people will say, well, don't want to hire, or I don't feel like I need to hire, I'm doing everything myself. And then once we start to have deeper conversations and they're busy, especially if they're booked and busy, then they start to recognize, like, oh, actually, I do need an admin person. Yeah. And even when you're wanting to add multiple providers or, folks to your team, you want to expand your team, one of the first hires that you need to make would be an admin hire. So oftentimes people skip that step. And it just allows for you to move quicker, faster, be able to provide more excellent service, make sure that your schedules are full. Money, you're not sitting up or having to collect money. You can have somebody who can send invoices or whatever, make sure that the money's on point. If there's payment plans that you're doing, like all of those things become really important. And so the administrative person is key.
Yes, love that. Love that. So for our listeners, and they are aspiring to have a private practice, what are you seeing as far as I guess yearly earnings that private practice that you have helped, or tell us about some of the practices maybe where they were at and where you have helped them to get to after utilizing your service to let our listeners know what they can aspire to and what is actually possible and have in owning a private practice.
Yeah, I mean, you can have a private practice that generates, multi-millions. So it's just a matter of frame of reference, what you want to do within the practice. It definitely requires different revenue streams as well. So a lot of the clients that I work with who are at seven figure plus, like I have two co-founders who are flying in on Thursday to work with me. And so we're working towards 7 to 8. And so what that looks like, it's multidisciplinary. There's multiple service lines. It's from a team perspective, being very strategic and intentional about the team that you're hiring. So my folks are able to scale from even 6 to 7 or from 7 to 8 because we're focusing from that 6 to 7. It's all about team, right? So making sure that you're a strong delegator, making sure that your leadership skills are on point, making sure that you are paying attention to operations, that you understand your money. So we're looking at rates, we're looking at reimbursement, we're looking at, just making sure that the team that they're hiring makes sense according to where the practice is at that point in time. And then scaling from 7 to 8, that's more operational, right? So you have team there. Are you leveraging the team to their full capability? What are operational processes and systems? What needs to happen from the revenue streams? Are you leveraging the current revenue streams to their max to make sure that that money is coming into? And then also thinking about, is there any other ventures that you want to do? So one of my clients, owns real estate on the side, and so she owns the building that her practice is in. And so she leverages that building too. So it's a matter of just stepping into opportunities, but it starts first with you getting really good at what you're doing, getting really good at with that practice, and then once you decide what that vision, that mission is, what you're building, getting the clarity, the sky's the limit. You can do as many things as you want to when it comes to that. And then once you start to sprinkle in like business credit or leveraging the money that's coming in to make more money, like all those things, that's where things start to become really fun. But yeah, I mean, definitely, if you want a multi-million dollar practice, you can have a multi-million dollar practice. It's just a matter of staying focused on that and realizing that that is completely possible. And then making sure that you're investing in yourself along the way, investing in the practice, making sure that you have a good financial partner, making sure that you are definitely not shortchanging your practice or putting in makeshift solutions in order to get there, because that's where folks get burned out. That's where they get tired. That's where they start to think like this isn't possible, and it's because either you feel like you can't afford it, or I can't do it, or I can't hire this person, instead of coming from a place of opportunity. If this is what you want, how can you get it? How do you need to make that money? Where can that money come from? So there's a number of different things that you can do, but it's never a matter of I'm in private practice, I can't make money. No, you can definitely make money. I see it every day. So
Yes. You're like, "I know, I see it all the time."
I see it all the time.
Perfect.
Yes. Yeah.
So last thing, if you can just give our listeners who are wanting to start a private practice 3 things that they can do right now, to get them just started. What is some homework that you would give our listeners who are thinking about starting a private practice, to be able to start? What do they need to do to start?
Yeah, number one is just start, so especially if you're listening to this and you've been kind of in your head of, I would love to start, just start, take the step. So of course you want to make sure structurally that you're sound. So, making sure that your business foundation is set. So if you need to get like a PLC, or if you're at a place of LLC and you need to transition over to S Corp, like those types of things, make sure you're set up that way. The other thing too is making sure that if you're bringing revenue in the door, that you're getting comfortable with money. So even when you're not generating anything, paying attention to how your beliefs about money, what you think about money, because that's going to impact a lot of the decisions that you're making. So getting comfortable with that. So that would be my second homework, in paying attention to how you're doing things personally with your money. So if you are personally handling your money in a way that is, you're draining out your bank account, or, you're coming from a place of scarcity. You don't really look at your money, how you're spending it personally. All of that's going to go into your business, right? And so you want to definitely pay attention to that. The third thing I would say is get help. So if you can just continue to listen to podcasts like this, or or read a book, or if you are working even in a 9 to 5 and you have that income, don't be afraid to spend that income to get a coach, in order to, again, accelerate that process for you. And so that way you're not just starting from a place of, let me just try to figure it out on my own. So just take the step, do the research, figure it out, and just realize that there's some amazing things that are on the other side. of entrepreneurship. It's not every day is not easy. There's some days that are just like, oh my gosh, but if I had to pick my hard, I would pick this hard every single day of the week. So it's
Yes.
just a matter of just deciding and pulling the trigger. So the world is truly your oyster. And if it's there for a reason.
Absolutely. I love those tips so much. Especially with dealing with the money because I know as nurses we can make fast money. Kiana
Hmm.
always says she calls it like going back to the pole when we go back to bedside. And even me, I still work one day at the hospital, and she's like, "Oh, you going to the pole, huh?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm still going to the pole." But it's because we count our money in shifts. So it's like, okay, I need to make 2 shifts to buy these new shoes. I'm gonna go do it. But and I think that's what kind of scares us too when we get into business because we tell people to look at your finances now and see where you can cut back because especially with building a business, even if you're not even if you're using our tactics with business credit to help you build the business, there's still a lot of sacrifices you have to make. We get people who take our class and then they're like, oh, well, I couldn't really work on my homework because I just worked the last 6 shifts in a row, 12-hour shifts. It's like, that's what we're trying to get out of. So we have to really reframe our brain as nurses and thinking about money. So I think it's so important that you said that. And those are ways that you can start there if you're, scared to go out and because it is an investment to get a business coach and I think the sticker price can be a shock for people who aren't in this business game but as soon as you start and see how much coaching helps you then it's like you don't mind at all spending money on the next coach so I think it's good that you brought that up to even start with just a financial coach or a life coach who's working with you to clear up some of those money issues or to help you realize why you spend so much money and why you can't just scale back so that you can think about the bigger dream, which is financial freedom and time freedom and things that entrepreneurship allows you to do. So, yeah, I definitely agree that starting there with starting a mindset coach who can help you out with the money aspect is very, very important and will be very helpful because it takes a lot of that with building and also scaling a business to know to change your relationship around money. So,
Yeah.
thank
Yep.
you so much for saying.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're
So, if you
welcome.
can
It's true.
if you can let people know where to find you, any offers that you have, and about your program, please let us know about that.
Yeah, you can always find me on Instagram. So I am there at Savvy Clover Coaching, SAVVYCLOVER. You can also find me on my website, www.savvyclover.com. And so there, waiting for you is a private practice health assessment. So if you are wanting to get, just a business score for how your practice is doing, that's there. And then also I host a free 2-day seminar every month, so you can go and check out that and get registered there too. So yeah,
Cool. Perfect. And we will link all of that information in the show notes. So be sure to check it out. And also, if you guys know anyone who's trying to build a practice, or if you're trying to build a practice, send this to your friends or send this to any business mates who you might want to help you out with starting your business. Miss Brandy gave us great information today. Please check her out on social media, though it'll be linked in the show notes below, and see how she can possibly help your practice. Because I'm telling you that the easiest way to scale is to, like she said, is to get under a coach, someone who's been there, and she has clearly helped many, many practices to be successful. So go ahead and check her out. But I just want to thank you so much, Brandy, for joining us today and all the amazing gems that you dropped to help our medical practitioners in starting their own private practice and scaling it. So thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.